Good morning. Hey, John. Good morning. I don't know what time it is over there, but maybe good afternoon. Yeah, CoreWeave's not bad. CoreWeave not bad. This bounce a few days ago off the 5 day was perfect. What day was this? 105? Right here. 105, 106. Very nice. I think CoreWeave still looks pretty interesting. I don't know that I would buy it today, but market's in a definite uptrend. I mean, there's no denying that. My only slight thing is I don't have a ton of setups that I think look great. All the names that are the strongest are really extended, whether it's your BEs or your IONQs or your STXs of the world. I mean, things are some things are just vertical. So yeah, Ford actually looks pretty good. Yeah, Ford looks really good. You know the why I don't ever really talk about Ford? 1.9 ADR. Super slow. If you bought BidF on the breakout, like if you bought this on 9.9, realistically, I would have been trimmed a ton. Really, I would have trimmed some into this little push here, 3 to 5 days. And then I would just hold until every ATR above 7. Really, with these small caps, you can kind of go to 10. So by 916, you got to be getting out of a bunch. And then you're just kind of, at this point, you're down to a trailing position where you're probably just trailing the 5 or the 10 day. You've trimmed it 3 times, then yeah, you just want to hold it, against like maybe an ascending moving average or use like a prior day low. SYM, I think, looks pretty interesting. I talked about this one yesterday. Yeah, I don't hate the way this one is shaping up. Just has to get going here. Over 52s, I think it can act a whole lot better. We'll see. It's in the robotics theme, and it's already shown you can make a really nice move up. It's digesting. We'll see if it wants to go higher. TTAN. Yeah, not bad. I think you may have mentioned this one the other day, right? It's kind of like a little bull flag here, back above all key moving averages. Yeah, not bad. My only problem with Ethereum, and I said it yesterday, is we are so crowded. It's why I was looking to buy IBIT instead. Because I do think Bitcoin looks a little bit better, but Ethereum, I couldn't chase up ETHU yesterday. And then on IBIT, I needed it to break 67, just this level here. And during intraday, it just refused to do so and then rolled over. So yeah, I'm obviously glad that I'm not long or tried to force myself into IBIT, because I even said like I would have to own this today. Like I was talking to the people in the room, and I was telling him, like, if I can't buy this today, I'm not buying it tomorrow. And the reason is I may not get enough cushion today to be able to hold it over the weekend. Like, I wanted it to be able to push yesterday and then get a little bit of a cushion to hold it overnight and then hopefully have another nice day today. But, um, it just wouldn't push. So I didn't buy it. And that was kind of it with it. Didn't really have to think about it anymore. And then when MSTR rejected the 200, I got short. Would I buy Uber after the rejection of all-time highs? Um, it's I don't love the pickup in volume. That's one. I didn't think that the news was that horrific. Like Lyft, it's had a partnership with Waymo. I didn't think that that was that big a deal. I think I would personally wait for another 97.5 breakout and get back above this day's high. WBD. Mm, mm. I don't think the flag has been that long. This thing could easily keep going too, but nah, it's a bit extended to be getting situated in it. Right? It's over 5 times its average terrain from the 50. I'm good. Maze, recent IPO. I don't know much about this name, but this high type flag's a little bit better. Just the problem with Maze is there's no liquidity there. Trades 14 million bucks a day. Sale, isn't this one a recent IPO too? Yeah, I like this base. This thing looks pretty good too. It just kind of looks like a little saucer bottom, right? Where it just kind of creates this little U shape, and then they start to turn up. It's not very far from an all-time high either. That's good. I talked about SOUN on Wednesday's watch list video, and I thought it looked pretty decent. For a small cap, it's kind of already done this before, right? It makes a nice big move up. It then digests for a little while, and then starts to tighten up on the right hand side and eventually goes. Then it has the big pullback, and then it builds a new base. Then it starts to tighten up on the right hand side, and then maybe it can go. We've already kind of seen this movie once. Do we see it again? Maybe. You don't get the CoreWeave. You don't get the downtrend, or why it downtrended, or why there's so much hype with the stock that's still kind of in a downtrend. It does look like it's starting to base a little bit more, and it does fit into the data center theme. And the data center theme, whether you're looking at like Iron or Hut or Riot, Cypher, even Bitfarms recently, like I don't think these names are moving as crypto miners anymore. They're moving as data center plays. CDNS, Cadence. Cadence looks fine. Cadence could have probably been bought yesterday on that little subtle gap up. I don't really see where I would have bought it, but yeah, they made it tough. Yeah, even if you bought like a 5-minute opening range break, you're kind of in there. 62. And it also moves like fairly slow as well. Alta certainly looks like new all-time highs are coming. Love the way this thing has come back. Love the gap up on earnings. Built a new base. Has kept going. Had earnings again. Had a nice violent shakeout and held right back up. This is what you call tennis ball action. You get the dump on a pickup in volume, and the next day you're right back up. That is tennis ball action. It's not like an egg, right? Eggs will fall and then they'll crack. This falls and bounce right back up. You always want to pay attention to those. The only problem I've got with Alta, same deal as a few of these recently, is they're slow. Fix is another one. Big move on earnings. Big move on earnings. Built a nice little new base, and I just don't see a spot for it. Right? If you wanted to try and get involved here, I thought that was fine. I had what I thought was a nice little pivot on it, and then it just kind of started fooling around the pivot. It also had this high volume close level, which was good to pay attention to. So this day's close, 688.74, and you don't know when it was going to go, but this was pretty nice, buying it out of this tight day's high. This little subtle gap up here. But yeah, I don't really see anything with it right now. Just kind of got to leave it alone. Zscaler, it helps that CrowdStrike had a massive day yesterday. Yeah, I don't think this looks all that bad. And you also had recent earnings one in Rubrik. Are we trying to bounce off the 200? So we've kind of done this song and dance before. I don't know if we do the same, but you kind of get a little bit of a crack down to the 200, and then you bounce, and then you get this crack down to the 200 after a long consolidation. Do we begin to bounce as well? Yesterday, you definitely did. So, and you're back above the 200. Not bad. Not bad. If I were down on a position going into the weekend, would you hold or cut it? Okay, so it really depends how much size I have on it. So, for instance, I'm basically flat on SYM, but it's a very small position, right? It's just I want to add to it down the road, and I didn't want to take my entire position because I really didn't feel like there's a ton of momentum there. But it's a pretty tight chart, and it fits the robotics theme. So, okay, fine. And then AOI is another one of those. I really just want to try and get myself positioned into this name, but it's an even smaller position, right? I already took a loss on this thing once. So, it's an even smaller position with a wider stop. So it depends. Like if I bought a stock with like a 10% position and I was red or flat on it going into the weekend, I would just cut it and then reevaluate the next day. I even feel like that if I buy something on Tuesday and, I got to hold it overnight without a cushion. At that point, we're kind of just gambling. Lending Club does not look too bad. This looks like you've got new 52-week high coming. Small caps are running. The IWM new all-time high. Interest rates just got cut. Rocket kind of looks like it also may want to go too. This is like a very, very subtle bull flag. Rocket Lab distribution or a shakeout. Well, I think they did an offering, right? That didn't help. It just has to hold the 50. My only problem is like how many times do you come down to the 50 before you crack? I don't know. COOP? Nah, there's no setup here. There's no setup. Look at the way this thing's just been grinding. Like, where's the base? Besides, this is like, although it's been going up, it's pretty sloppy price action. Like if I own this in here, I would go nuts. TEM, not bad. Just wasn't ready yesterday. I talked about this one on last night's watch list video. I think it looks fine. The longer we can go sideways and let this 50 catch up, the better. Like let this thing catch up a little bit more, have a nasty little shakeout basically, and then tighten back up, and hopefully we're ready to go. Yeah, I like Shopify. This was on last night's watch list video too. I thought it was better to buy yesterday. Now the problem with Shopify, as with some of these others, it's a little bit slower. So I feel like, you just got to kind of buy it over a clean pivot and then just use a moving average as a stop. A little bit easier. Toast bouncing off the 200. Yeah. Nice to see. Yeah. Fuel cell theme. Yeah. I kind of noticed that. I think a lot of these names are getting picked up off of what BE did. So, BE's off and running, and then you start to get a sympathy bid in F cell, and then you start to get a sympathy bid in plug. Yeah. AMD flag looks fine, but it's got to get back above the 50 simple. You get this nasty gap down yesterday and you ramp back up all day on a pickup in volume. So there was clearly buyers, against that 150 level without question. Now the thing is can we get over the 50-day? Right? You start to live under the 50-day and then eventually you can roll over. So you got to reclaim it. I don't hate it at all. I think, AMD could eventually be on some renewed uptrend, probably. But yeah, we'll see. My thoughts on MSTR, I shorted this one yesterday. I'm using yesterday's high day as my stop for now. But, it's fairly simple setup. So you get this big ramp up all day on fluffy nothing. And then all of a sudden you crack the 200. Okay. And here's your 200 right here, 354.31. And then you get the 620 setup, which is kind of what I like. And then you get the rejection of the 200 a handful of times. I'll remove this right here, right here, right here. So fairly easy setup to get in and manage risk from, because you know exactly where you're wrong. Those are my only thoughts on MSTR. If it wants to get above the 200 simple moving average and then back above the 50 simple, then I won't say anything negative. Right? I'll have nothing to say. But for now, with the rest of crypto, it's got a small little gap down going. Pretty subtle at the moment, but we'll see. Like I said, I've got a really clear level from where to manage risk from, which is the most important on any trade. And you got a slight little downtick this morning in Ethereum, a slight little downtick this morning in Bitcoin. So you bought GoPro on 9/11. This is a nice little setup. Yeah, that's nice. First you get this low, and then you get a higher low. Don't mind that at all. Finding support on the rising 20, not bad. WYFI. Nah, far too thin. Trades 19 million bucks a day. Qualcomm is probably fine, but too slow. Yeah, this looks like it's done building a stage 1 base, maybe ready to go back into stage 2. But man, that's slow. I don't want to be in names that are too slow. FSLY, it looks like this thing could be trying to bottom. It would be nice if one of these quarters on earnings, it has a good gap up. Right? Earnings have just had a gap down, and then earnings, you had a little gap up, but nothing meaningful. And then this quarter, another gap up, but really within the same base. So one of these quarters, a gap up, a good gap up on a huge pickup in volume would be nice, because this is just sideways here. Do I think it's a mistake focusing on small, high ADR, smaller cap stocks within a group and large caps? Yeah, I actually used to kind of do that a little bit. So when you would get an underlying theme that's acting really well, in particular with like the large caps, then you could kind of look at the small caps. The problem became, as you start to scale your account, you would end up in these like crappy companies that you can't hold for too long. They're just shorter trades. And I would like to be in my names for as long as possible. And then secondly, you would end up in some of these offerings. And there were like times where I just would get sick of the offerings. Like you could be in small caps, but they're for shorter moves, right? They're not for like duration, they're for momentum, which is fine. You have to like know if they've got an open shelf or if they've got cash. Otherwise, like there were times where, I'd be up like 50K on a trade, and then I would like step away from my computer, and then I'd come back or I'd look at my phone or whatever, and it's 3:30, and I realized like I just got caught in a gap down, and now I'm down 50K, right? Like that's super annoying, right? Like just mentally dealing with that crap. And I was just like, okay, as my account's bigger, like I don't need to be in these things, right? I'd rather make slower money than to even be putting myself in this kind of headache. Um, so that's just kind of my thinking why I typically avoid smaller cap names. That's not to say they can't be traded. They definitely can be. If they have no open shelf, they've got a little bit of a cash runway, or they've already done a shelf and they've closed that offering, then that's fine, right? Then they've got a little bit of a cash runway. It's likely they don't do a second offering right away. So AQST. But yeah, you just kind of want to know that with some small caps. Nah, too thin, brother. Guys, you guys hear me say this all the time, right? You guys hear me say this all the time. I'm sure you guys hear me say this every single day. This thing trades 11 million bucks a day. And now, you've got this big spike up, and I probably don't even need to look at the news to know that it was on a bunch of fluffy nothing. Guys, it trades 12 million, 11 million dollars a day. Right? Like, don't trade names that are so illiquid. I will say something about this one that's positive. It trades pretty linearly. It's like it makes a move, it tightens up well. It makes a nice move, it tightens up fairly well. It makes a nice move, it's tightening up well again. It's pretty linear, but you guys just in your careers want to avoid names that are so illiquid. Like you can trade fast moving small mid caps, right? But think about something like Rigetti or IONQ, right? I think that's a better way to look at it. Or an Oklo before it made a huge move, right? It gave plenty of spots along the way to get involved. SMR, right? And plenty others. Just because it's like some fast moving small cap, oftentimes when it's trading less than $20 million, it only takes one person to come in and crush the stock. Is that really what you guys want? Yeah, TEM just needs a little bit more time. Yeah, so the way I kind of do it is I will scan through my 90-day relative strength scan. I'll also look through my ETFs, and then I'll say to myself, like, okay, what ETFs actually look ready to go? And then I'll start to scan through my 90-day relative strength scan. I'll kind of have a back of mind idea of what ETFs look pretty good. And then when I'm going through my setups, I go, oh, okay, that's a cybersecurity stock. That looks pretty good. Oh, yep, here's another one. And then I'm scanning some more, and here's another one. And if they've really got relative strength as a group, they'll all be on my relative strength scan. And I'll remember to myself, okay, the ETF looked pretty good, right? And looked like it could go higher. Now I've got a few stocks that have clean technical setups. They're nice and tight. They look like they could go higher. Where would I buy these names, right? Over prior day high? Do they have a clean little pivot? Preferably a horizontal pivot. And then that's really it. That's all. That's kind of how I look at it. I try to not be so perfect. And I'll tell you why. Right? Even the most perfect swing traders, they still have a 35% win rate. And that's exactly what my win rate is. Could I try to improve it just a little bit? Of course I can. But my win rate is about 35%, right? And I still make plenty of money. You don't have to be right more than that, especially in a market with so much uncertainty. Like it's completely unnecessary to try to be right more than that. I mean, could you shoot for 40%, 50% in a super hot market? Absolutely. And usually the market just makes you right. So just do your homework. Make sure you're focusing on stocks and leading groups. So like top 40 groups, make sure they have a clean technical setup. If they've got accelerating earnings and sales, that helps big time. That's something institutions look at. Good accumulation distribution. So like make sure that the stock looks like it's actually being accumulated. And then buy it on a day where the market and the group are pushing higher. All those things help you have a higher win rate. No, there's no setup here. There's no setup here. Serve ready to break out. Someone mentioned it yesterday. Excuse me. Yeah, Serve looks pretty good. It's got a big base. Doesn't look like it's done too much wrong for the last few months. The only problem with Serve that I might say is it's kind of lagged the market quite a bit. Can that change? Yeah, it absolutely can change, but it has lagged the market quite a bit. SLDP, that's is that a battery name? This looks kind of like this one before it took off in there. SLDP, kind of. Dave, yeah, Dave's been building a new base. This doesn't look too bad either. Yeah, not bad. Run. I think that there are. Now, this is nice and tight, so I can't hate on this. But I do prefer something like NXT. Right? This is like an all-time high breakout. To me, it's a little bit better. Yeah, NXT. Agreed. Rivian, not bad, still in a stage 1 base, but it does look like, it's trying to emerge from a big setup. We'll see. CCL, I already own this one. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. I'm not going to add to it anymore. I own it from this day right here. So just a simple high volume close setup, and then I've just been sitting in this thing for months now. So almost 3 months in this one. I'm hopeful that this could be one of those year-long holds. When you say this base reminds me of AS, I don't know what base you're talking about. You'll have to remind me. I feel like I review so many names in the morning. You'll have to remind me what base you're talking about. AIP, far too thin. You guys hear me say this all the time. Christopher, please listen to what I'm saying. You guys, if you guys can't calculate a dollar volume, you guys got some homework to do. Christopher, you probably heard me say this a million times. This thing trades $5 million a day. Look at this thing. It's a $10 stock. It trades 400,000 shares. Who's there? Right? There's nobody here. Like, where's the traders at? Right? There's literally nobody alive in this thing. $5 million. I've taken positions larger than that myself. Like, you don't want to be in crap like that, dude. Trust me. Here's another one. ALLT, another $5 million. Like, yes, I understand it's in an uptrend, but there's nobody here. There's nobody alive. Only takes one person to totally destroy that stock. LTBR, much better. $20 million a day, at least. Much better. Problem with LTBR is, one, it's choppy. It's got to get going at some point. I don't know when that is, but ideally you go ahead and take out this high volume close down the road. 1711. Until then, I'd probably leave it alone. You get a nice 1711 breakout, you probably get a quick scoot up to 20 plus. There's a nice change in character here. I'm sure you could notice it. They make these big spikes, and then it gave all of it back. Make a big spike, give all of it back. Make a big spike, and then now all of a sudden it goes sideways. Much better. Much better. It just needs to move at least 4% per day. I mean, look, if you're trading with 5 million bucks, maybe more, more, then you can go to 3 ADR, 2.5, right? Like you could trade stocks that move a whole lot slower. But if you're trading with like 100K, then, and you want to actually like move that money and eventually get to a million and then 5 million, you want to trade stocks with a little bit more oomph, right? They can move a little bit faster. By the way, there's a reason they've created all these leveraged ETFs. That's the reason, right? Everybody wants a little bit more oomph. And so these slower stocks now have a 2x leveraged and a 3x leveraged ETF. And they're even giving fast stocks 2x leverage and 3x leverage ETFs. So, which just kind of goes to show you, how people want that violence. People want fast moving names. VRT, yeah, not a bad one. Not a bad one. What I like about it is it's kind of building a new base. I don't know that I see a spot for it just yet, but it does look pretty good. Yeah, Sim does have the a little bit better fundamentals. What I like about Sim over Serve is, okay, so from April lows, this thing actually went on to make a really big move, almost 300%, right? Serve from those April lows made a little squirt, not a little. I mean, I guess that was pretty substantial, but then has done nothing, right? So like from the ends of May till now, just not, which is fine, right? I mean, it could easily go higher. Toast. My fiance owns this in her long term. She's got this from like way down. I don't know where the hell she's got it at. Even before this, actually. He, I don't know. $19, I think she's got it from. 19. She's been in this one for a really long time. I want to say down here somewhere. Yeah, wait for it to tighten, wait for AOI to tighten. Yeah. It's one of those that feels very annoying. Like it, when everybody's watching it, it shakes people out. When everybody wants to leave it alone, it just kind of will be ripping. At what point do you just stop focusing on a stock because it has not moved? If you are looking at fix, the 10 and the 20 caught up and nothing happened. Yeah, the problem is for instance, like a fix one, it made a big move pre this gap up, right? Before it had this earnings gap up, was already on a really nice trend without really building a base. Then it gaps up, and then you're a little bit extended from the 50 at that point, which is why it went sideways. Once the 10 and the 20 caught up, it has done something, but it just doesn't really move fast enough to get me excited. Yeah, Shopify looks fine, Miguel. MP, I like MP. I'm already in MP though. I'm in MP from this day here, I believe. One of these days. I'm in MP from, I'll tell you. I own MP from $64 even. So I believe I bought it on 99 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 99. And I was using the 50 simple as my guide and it never broke below it. Wise, WISE. This isn't a VCP. What? Am I looking at the right stock? This trades the least liquidity I've ever seen in my entire life. $440,000. We can't be looking at the same stock, right? Doesn't look right. What's the minimum ADR I personally prefer? 3.5. I mean, if I have to go a little bit lower, I will, especially if it's coming out of a really nice base, right? Like ARC is 2.29, but on this day here, it was, a little bit better than that, but it had a perfect setup. So, and you could size this kind of thing up, and even looking at it now, this thing is just wonderful. Looks awesome. PARR. Yeah, not bad. This thing had some, pretty nice little pullbacks against the 20 in here. Right in here. Yeah, it's not too bad. TEM I've talked about quite a bit. I think it's starting to look really nice. I would hope that it can go sideways a little bit longer. Cost VCP setting up. Cost could also be a stage 3 top, right? Also, the market's been hitting new all-time highs, and this thing's living below the 200 simple moving average. Not really what you want to see, right? It's made a big move up. This is how stocks top, they make a big move up, and then eventually they go sideways for a while, and then they get below their 200, and then they can roll over, right? ANF was fairly similar, right? You make a really big move up, you go sideways for a while, you start getting underneath your 200 simple moving average, and then you roll over. So is Costco going to play out the same way? Probably not identical, but underneath the 200 is a little bit no bueno. What do I think of MBIS? A little bit more sideways, I think would look great. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with this thing. A little bit more sideways. I had this thing in, where did I have NBIS? And I took a loss on this thing too. 69.83 on August 25th. August 25th. I bought it here, and then I stopped myself out on August 27th here. So it wasn't going anywhere. And then, if kind of happy about the stop out, and then obviously you get the huge gap up. Joby looks like a potential runner. It does. Joby's got to get back over the 50-day. At the very least. See this day here where it literally hit the 50-day and rejected? It's got to get back over this day's high at the least. And the 50-day. Shame, because I had this thing short, like I think right one of these days, this day here. And I was thinking we were going to break this little shelf. And, we pushed a little higher and then broke the shelf. Had a short and I got stopped out of it. SKT moves sub 2% per day and only trades $30 million a day. So not only is there not that much liquidity, it also moves insanely slow. Like, I talk about this all the time. Like, where would a name like this rank on your priority of list of things to own? If there's 12,000 publicly traded stocks, you could stick this one somewhere in the 11,000 category. It's slow and illiquid. Like, you couldn't even get enough size in this thing to make it worth owning at that ADR. Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with Rubric. Very sloppy. Rocket Lab hanging on to the 50, Rubric trying to hang on to the 200. MU's got a bit of a gap down going on this morning, and this thing's wildly extended. I was looking at this thing on this Thursday, and I even thought that the next day on Friday was good. Up here, there's no setup. Dave looks fine. This is a gorgeous setup here. If this thing were faster, this is like textbook. Dimitri, this is perfect, brother. You keep finding stuff like this, you're going to be a very rich man. Plenty of liquidity, $135 million over the last 20 days. If the ADR were 4 or even 3.5, you'd be onto something special. Very nice chart. Does it go on to work? You have no idea, but you have a super clear defined level, very perfect pivot where everybody and their mother can see it. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's not super strong right now because it's just digesting, right? It also made a really big move up. One big move up, digested for a little bit. A second big move up, digested again some more, allowed the 50 to catch up. Everything is super tight. I mean, really couldn't ask for a much better setup. Would you buy a name that is forming a high type flag but extended off a major base and weekly 10 MA? CLS? No, CLS kind of hurts, man. I own this thing at 100. I think it's just a little too extended for me from the 50-day. That's the problem. Right? Like the breakout level would effectively be a new 52-week high, and I'd be buying it more than 4 times its average true range from the 50. So, no, I wouldn't buy CLS. Not yet, at least. Another week or two of chopping around and sideways, then we're talking. NXT looks pretty good. NXT indeed does look pretty good. AHR, nice one, just super slow, but nice trend. ABVX. I don't really see anything special here. Look, I don't even know what this gap up was about. This kind of feels like a biotech. Feels like a biotech. Dino has been a beast. A few names in this group are acting well. Yeah, I don't really see a setup I love in Dino. I like this setup a whole lot more. Yeah, Dino could use a little bit more time. You're planning to get ANET today? Godspeed. Yeah, it doesn't look terrible. I loved ANET down here, though. This was better when it got over its 200, and then this little subtle base here. It's a little consolidation just above that move over the 200. And I thought it was going to pull a CLS kind of move, meaning I thought it was going to go make a new 52-week high, and it did. And I'm not in there. Thoughts on MSOS, the wheat stocks? It looks all right. It looks like it's trying to establish itself back above the 200, which is good. But, if the wheat names are actually going to go higher, they'll have better setups down the road. Well, it depends. You can't copy me, right? Because I'll give you a number that might be a little too big for your account, right? Like if you're trading with a little less money, then you need to kind of take into account how much you're trading with. When you're trading with a little less, your universe of stocks is a whole lot bigger. So you really shouldn't take my word for it. You should just avoid stocks that trade, less than 20, 25 million, $30 million. There's no need. Thoughts on CRISPR? This thing has been acting better. It's a Kathy Wood stock, so I'm hopeful that it keeps going. No, if you got only 5% of your portfolio is left in there, it's a little even that, man. But if you own it from 30, then I would just hang out. I thought MP was better against the 50 simple. I thought MP was better down here personally. I don't know that this is a good setup after yesterday's 7% push. SYM a bit tighter. This one doesn't look too bad. I don't trade options, Jordan. I do not trade options. Palantir was good yesterday. I don't know that it's good to add either after yesterday's update, but yesterday was perfect. MSTR above 450, is it good to buy? I would think you would want to see it establish itself above the 200. All it kind of did yesterday was get to its 200 and then reject. You're saying buying over 350, you're still underneath the 200. Yeah, I did just say that, Alex. I am literally short MSTR. So, my bias swings a little bit more on the short side on that name. Could I easily get stopped out at yesterday's highs? I think it's totally possible. And then, we'll see what happens if and when it can get to its 50-day. But it just gave me such a low risk entry, right? It's like you get this break below the 200 and then you get this rejection right off the 200. NKTR. I haven't even looked at this one. Yeah, there's no setup here. Carvana, I thought yesterday was a bit of a failed breakout. I mean, could use a little bit more time. I honestly, this name has made such a wild move up. I wouldn't be too surprised if this thing just did nothing for, a year. Autodesk, too slow. 1.83% ADR. Enough liquidity, but did Oklo just get news? I'm in Oklo, but some pretty odd 130,000 shares just smacked there. I'll take it. The Metals Company. Yeah, maybe if this thing could start living back above the 50 simple, maybe back above $6. SOUN, I don't think that it looks too bad. Uber, I think it needs to get back above that all-time high, right? It needs to get back above 97.5. AGX breakout was yesterday. This is a setup worth trading. I mean, it trades, it moves fairly quickly and it's not too bad. Trades $100 million a day. I don't know. Let me look. AGX. Engineering construction. This has been a really strong group recently. So, yeah, not a bad name. Yeah, Futu. We'll see if this thing can bounce off of its 50-day here. Well, that's not bad, Ross, because now you've got a spot where you can manage risk from right away. No, MNDY. What are my thoughts on MNDY? You don't want me to give you my thoughts on MNDY. I'm going to come off as an asshole. Joe, don't be looking at shit like this, dude. Don't waste your life, man. What are you looking for? The bottom on a stock below the 200? Don't do that to yourself. I only care about trimming more if the stock is getting extended from the 50. So I wouldn't enter TEM just yet. Maybe if we can get a big pickup in volume over yesterday's highs, then I would be interested in it. How about BB? Let's see. Nah, nah. OPAD's only running because open door. OPAD only ran because of open door. I mean, it's not that ugly looking. Could be in play. Hopefully, I talked about MP plenty. You guys should have already been in it around the 50 day. If you're kind of chasing it up here, you're doing it a little bit backwards. What's my view on triple witching? I think it's quadruple witching, actually. That's my view. OPAT or OUST, the entry was yesterday or even the day prior. This thing is going to go make probably a new 52-week high today. So, but I don't know that this is, the entry on this was the day prior or yesterday. And I had this on the watch list the day before yesterday to buy it yesterday. Looks really good. Nope. During contractions, ADR will shrink quite a bit. Yeah, this is true. She also has Tesla, and she also has Uber and AbbVie, and all of them are super bright green for being patient. Spot was amazing yesterday, Scotland. This thing was awesome. Big old base. I mean, this thing looks like it's ready for new all-time highs as well. Yeah, you own this thing from 190s. Yeah, that's super incredible, honestly. I'm assuming your entry was on 1.4. Just perfect. Just perfect. All right, guys. I love you all. You guys are the best. I will see you guys. Trade them well. It's Friday. No need to ruin the week. Wait for your fat pitch. Market's definitely in an uptrend. And I will see you guys on Monday morning. Enjoy your weekend, too. Yep. Have a great day out there, guys. Be safe.